In this episode of the Orange Nerd Show, we're going to dive into this technology that Lucasfilm is using to sort of de-age, recreate young Luke Skywalker. We're going to talk about the ramifications it has for Star Wars, but not even just Star Wars, just Hollywood in general. We're going to dive into it up next. Hey everybody, welcome aboard to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. I brought my friend and I guess you would say producer of OG55, my good friend, my compadre, Mr. Vash Sky. How you doing today, sir?
I guess I would be kind of an impromptu producer, you know. I'm a stickler for audio, and I keep I keep bugging the guys before we go live. You might want to adjust your levels here, might want to adjust levels here. That way, we can produce the best show possible for our viewers. But if you want to interact with me on Twitter, best place to find me is at Vash Sky. That's right down there. And the best place to see me is on Orange Go for D5 on your channel at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that's where you can find me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, let's dive in. Let's dive right in. So last night, oh my God, last night's episode of Book of Boba Fett was a banger, was a total banger. Now, I just want to let you guys know in advance that we will be discussing spoilers for that episode. So if you haven't seen it yet, maybe check it out and then come back. Okay, just want to let you guys know. But yeah, we're going to talk about some of the technology used in that episode, and then we're going to dive in on the second half of the show in regards to the episode itself. So Dre, they brought back, and I'm gonna go ahead and you have some visuals for us.
We do.
Comparing Luke Skywalker from the original trilogy and the Luke Skywalker we see in Book of Boba Fett episode 6. I gotta say, man, look, this technology, I mean, season 2 finale of Mandalorian was not that long ago. No. And it really wasn't that long ago. And I feel like the technology has improved quite a bit even since then. What are your thoughts on this Luke, this young Luke in the Book of Boba? I mean, were you kind of shocked at how much they used him, how well it was executed, etc.? What are your feelings on it overall?
I was kind of stunned because, yeah, you're right. We haven't. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we saw Luke in Mandalorian, the season finale of Mandalorian season 2, and when Luke appeared there, it was great. It was awesome. Obviously, the momentous occasion of him just destroying all the Dark Troopers right there, and I mean, it was pretty sweet, right? And he makes his grand entrance, but the face itself. It was cool to see, but it wasn't like perfect. It wasn't like a premium. Some people have actually on YouTube gone back and deep faked that to make it even closer to the Return of the Jedi Luke that we kind of know and remember, and actually improved upon its technology itself, which was surprising. It was like, oh, okay, well, there are multiple ways to do this, and the fan community found ways of pulling it off. But when you see him here in Book of Boba Fett Chapter 6, I mean, this is some really impressive stuff. I mean, really, really impressive stuff. To see this, I mean, this is really, really cool, and extremely rewarding for us viewers to kind of to see him in this way. In a way that we never thought was possible, in a way that we kind of maybe imagined in our heads, maybe reading some EU storylines or some comic books or something else. To see him here, I mean, I'm really impressed.
I was too. It's funny because like when we saw him for that brief moment, or moments to be fair, a few minutes in Mandalorian season 2, the finale. Yeah, it wasn't 100%. I would say 85, 90% there, and it was very limited. You know, it was just for a few minutes. It was very much a cameo. So when there were like rumors circulating that he would make an appearance in the Book of Boba Fett, I was kind of expecting pretty much the same, you know, like you would see Luke maybe with, you know, little Grogu for a few minutes, maybe not much dialogue, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that was not the case at all. I mean, a good portion of this entire episode, almost the entire 45 minutes is Luke and Grogu.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a much more dynamic young Luke than we saw in the Mandalorian season finale. Oh. It's much more dynamic. You hear a lot more dialogue. It looks better. I was really, really shocked, pleasantly surprised.
I was over the moon about it because I couldn't believe it. I mean, I actually sat there stunned to see just the ambition of attempting to do these scenes in this way. I mean, it's just like, whoa. I mean, this is for a Disney Plus streaming series, right? I mean, this is not for a major film, and to be able to pull it off to this degree, I mean, even the voice really emulated Luke from Return of the Jedi. Obviously, his mannerisms, his the contortions of his face and so forth. I mean, this is really, really, really impressive, and it just took me. At a certain point, you just kind of believed it. You just kind of accepted it, and it was like, okay, we're seeing Luke Skywalker do Luke Skywalker things at this point in the universe, and I mean, it was extremely rewarding as a viewer because I mean, like I said before, we we just never thought this was possible, and here it is.
Here it is. Now, do you know, like the tech behind this, like? So is it Mark Hamill that we're seeing and they go in there digitally and kind of de-age him? Is this a completely different person that they kind of add in and tweak facial features to make it look like Mark Hamill? Do you know what's involved with this at all? Or
there are multiple ways to do it. Historically, what they have done, I mean, this is going back all the way to Tron, what is it?
Legacy, I think.
Yeah, Tron Legacy. I was thinking of the moniker with it, Tron 2, right? You saw how the main actor in that film was de-aged, for those various segments, and the way they have done it in the past is you have like a Mark Hamill, he shaved off his beard and you have the dots up placed on, and you have this kind of big head apparatus that records a kind of a close-up shot of the visual footage, and surrounded by lights and so forth, just to kind of get all the details that you can. He acts out the scene like that, and then you have kind of like this body double come in and act out the scenes in very much the same way. And you composite old photos or maybe digital recreations of how he looked and superimpose them on that model, using a combination of the footage that you gained from Mark Hamill himself and kind of placed on that face of the double for the final shot. So it's a kind of a mixture of the two. Then there's the deep face, like the DeepFake technology, where it's just like you take like an image, right, and you just kind of place it on there. There are multiple ways to do it. I don't quite know what they're doing here, to be honest, but it is extremely impressive.
It's very well done, and Industrial Light and Magic is really the leader in special effects, and they have been for decades and decades. So they're really the forefront on technology, in general. So it doesn't surprise me too much in terms of them being the ones to do this, but I just couldn't believe how realistic it looked.
I mean, it looks really good. I mean, just to do, like, you see the sun kind of glistens off his hair like that. I mean, that you would have to have had somebody with a wig on in order to get that light proportional. So I mean, they are compositing, different, maybe different takes, different techniques in order to get it kind of just right. And it looks, I mean, I'm telling you, it looks really, really good. You can maybe see it there, the contrast from his, kind of jawline to his neck. Maybe you can kind of see what they're doing there, but you cannot see this, in action. I mean, if you really study, maybe you can kind of figure it out. But it looks really, really phenomenal. And like I said, you just get to a point where it's just like you stop thinking about the tech, you stop thinking about how they do it, and you just kind of get engrossed in the story. And I think they pulled it off. They pulled that kind of effect off well. There were some techniques where Dave Filoni kind of like, he has the camera on Grogu while Luke Skywalker's talking, to kind of short it a little bit, which is fairly appropriate. But even like I said before, even the voice, I mean, sounds really, really spot on.
It was so spot on. And this might be a little bit of a spoiler alert. I don't know actually if it is or not, because this is really kind of just at this point rumors and speculation in regards to this episode 7 of Book of Boba. Mm-hmm. But it's been heavily rumored that Han Solo is going to make an appearance in the finale. It's been heavily rumored, and it will be Harrison Ford. I mean, basically the stuff like they're de-aging, and it's going to be a young Harrison Ford, basically, or young Han Solo. Mm-hmm. This really does change the game, not just for Star Wars, because now if you think about it, the how good the technology is, you can do anything for Star Wars. You can bring anybody back. Essentially, right?
Yeah.
And they might do that. They've already done it with Luke, and they might do that with Han Solo in the next episode. Might, just a rumor. Mm-hmm. But the ramifications for this are so far beyond just Star Wars.
Yes.
I mean, even like we had a great conversation yesterday with George and Alia about Indiana Jones 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are they going to implement some of the same tech in that movie? I mean, that's interesting, right?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because let me see if I can share this screen with you.
All right.
This is somebody uploaded a deepfake of some of the footage from Solo with Harrison Ford's face placed on top of Alden Ehrenreich. And it looks, I mean, I'll play some of the footage for you. And I think you'll be pretty impressed here.
Let's do it.
Obviously, audio off, just so we don't get copyright.
Yeah, and I'll link this. Send me the link, and I'll link it in the description, and so people can check it out too.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you can kind of see how Alden, with this deepfake applied, actually did a pretty good job emulating the mannerisms, so that this fake was pretty spot on. But you can kind of see how like this works, and this is a fan. This is this is not some big studio. This is just somebody who's just like, hey, what does it look like, right? And you can see the implementation's actually pretty good on this as well. Now, obviously, it doesn't maybe have the polish as something like that we saw in Book of Boba Fett. Chapter 6, right, with Luke Skywalker. But you can kind of see the potential of doing it this way. And as long as you have somebody who kind of has like the voice, the vocal mannerisms of Harrison Ford at this time, which there are some impressionists who do a really good job at that as well.
Right.
I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, you could just do anything you want. So we were talking about it the last time on the show, like you said, with George and Alia, right? We were talking about how it's just Harrison Ford is just kind of, I mean, he's linked to this character. He's irrevocably linked with this character. He's intrinsically linked to it. We saw how, having somebody else do Solo maybe didn't do all that well, right?
Right.
does that happen with Indiana Jones? We really don't know, but this is something that they could do here if they wanted to go maybe in this direction and really grow that character story out. There you go.
Yeah, that's incredible work,
Yeah,
by the way, and I will link that down below. That's an absolutely incredible work. I mean, this looks top notch.
it does. It does.
I mean, for a fan made thing, I mean, this is incredible.
I mean,
Absolutely incredible.
it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. So obviously the technology, the potential is out there, right?
Yeah.
In order to do some really, really fun things. And like you said, not just with Indiana Jones and Star Wars, but with a litany of other things. You know, we listened to I think you know her, we listened to a YouTuber named Steph, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I think you've heard, but she brought up an interesting point. It was like, well, you know, maybe, face actors that we kind of typically see in Hollywood and film and TV and so forth, maybe they become voice actors at a certain point, right? Where the technology just gets just a crazy degree that you can do stuff like this. I think there is potential for that.
Yeah, that's a great point. It almost becomes kind of like what animation is, right? Like you have characters like Mickey Mouse, right? And you know the character is not a real person, obviously. So the character is forever, but the voices, all you need to basically do is just find someone who can sound like Mickey. Is that like what Steph was talking about? Is that where we're headed with this stuff? Like, will Harrison live on forever in these movies? And all we have to really do is find someone who can kind of like mimic how he sounds. That's fascinating to me. And that changes Hollywood completely. I mean, that is a total game changer. I mean, that goes so far beyond just Star Wars and just Indiana Jones. I mean, there's so much you can do here with this in terms of sequels, in terms of prequels, in terms of the sky is the absolute limit.
Yeah, and it even gets even more complex than that, right? I mean, you can potentially, if you have the license to their appearance, right, you can bring people back to life and do other things. I mean, we did see that with Star Wars itself, with Rogue One, right, with Tarkin, right? I mean, you know,
and Princess Leia,
and Princess Leia, which was really interesting because they took previous footage, like a combination of previous footage from when they shot Force Awakens, and kind of interspliced it in there and extended some shots out and just doing some radical stuff, right? So for Rise of Skywalker in that particular case. So, and then, you know, the way Steph tells it, she was told that first, you know, by a director in the industry, supposedly, that yeah, these actors who you know for their work on screen become voice actors. That was a director that told her that. So Hollywood is already making those connections, and I'm really excited to see what the potential for this technology is, especially when it comes to the canon of Star Wars, because these characters, Han, Leia, and Luke, and even Lando and others, are just super vital to this kind of world, this kind of series, this kind of playground, this time period that John and Dave are dabbling in, and it's really it's really exciting to see what they have in store.
It really is. This is something that like it just gets you so excited, and this kind of reminds me like the first time you watch the prequels and seeing all that shiny new computer generated imagery, right? Because back then it was totally unique. Back then the CGI was state of the art. You know, I felt kind of the same way with this episode of Book of Boba with Luke. It was really this like, oh my God kind of moment, you know. And this is the future, and it's only going to get. I think it's only going to get more real. More believable. And then, you know, who knows, you know, maybe Disney goes in here after the fact, maybe not go full George Lucas, like special edition, but I can see them maybe like in 10 or 15 years revisiting, maybe say the season 2 finale of Mandalorian and kind of going in there and just kind of, you know, touching up Luke, making him a little more realistic as the years go on. I can see them doing that, not changing anything story-wise or, just making him look a little better. I could definitely see them kind of doing that, kind of revisiting some of this stuff later on and kind of improving on it. So I don't know.
That is one of the advantages of not putting these out in physical media. At least like once, and then it lives on a Blu-ray disc, and now you never touch it again, right? The fact that it is on a streaming platform does mean that you can go back and alter these things. I believe there was an episode in season 2 of Mandalorian. I can't remember the exact name, but it was when they kind of went into this installation, and they were fighting off the Remnant next to the major town that's in The Mandalorian, right? And there was an incident where you could actually see somebody like in plain clothes in one of the hallways. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
I do. About that? Okay,
I do.
Well, later on they digitally removed that person, and now if you go to the episode on Disney Plus, that's that person is no longer there, right? So they've already kind of altered some of these things.
They
even
altered the deal.
Yeah, exactly, right? Let's see. I might have it.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
There it is, right? So they've already done that kind of stuff. I think with what you're saying, I think it's absolutely possible that they do that they kind of improve on their work even after the fact, just like George did.
Yeah, they should. That's in George Lucas style. I mean, he definitely revisited his own work. And fans, not always happy about that, but I mean that was a very George Lucasy thing. He constantly wanted to update his work, and I think that I don't know. I think Disney should sort of respect that and sort of do the same. Now, maybe not go to the same level where you're changing things and but going in there like for Mando and kind of touching Luke up, making him look a little more real as as the technology improved, things like that. I think it's fine. I support that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. No, none of this no from Darth Vader or whatever. Let's not do that. Okay, let's but yeah, no, totally. Improved visuals, maybe even like more characters in some of these scenes where it's like, hey, we don't have like money for extras, maybe plus kind of those effects up and stuff. I mean, there's tons of stuff that George used to do to kind of improve his films and things. So even that, the sky's the limit.
It really is. Now let's dive a little bit. We're gonna head into some spoiler territory. Let's talk a little bit about this episode. It was Book of Boba episode 6. So, wow. Like, where do you even begin with this? Now, like we said earlier, the bulk of the episode really focuses on Luke Skywalker training little Grogu. This was really, in my opinion, kind of a beautiful moment. It sort of is like, how they, George, I think it was George Lucas who said Star Wars, it rhymes, right?
Yes.
This kind of, it rhymed because it was Yoda who was training Luke in the original trilogy. And then now you have Luke here training little Grogu, who is obviously very reminiscent of Yoda. It's very much in that classic kind of Star Wars, it rhymes kind of energy. And I just felt that was such a beautiful thing that Filoni did here in this episode with that, and how he was sort of telling little Grogu, I knew a Jedi master named Yoda, and this is the way he talked, and kind of teaching him about kind of like Grogu's like species, and I love that. I got goosebumps watching it. I loved it.
I know. Same here. I mean, absolutely same here. Just, and remember that vision there where it's like, hey, do you want to know, more about your home world? And it's like, he kind of touches his head, and now it's, it's Order 66. You got the 501st, clone troopers just mowing down some Jedi. It's like, oh my God, this is, whoa, like, this is awesome, but yeah, I mean, no, you're exactly right, right? Where you have this kind of rhyming that we're doing here. I mean, hell, they brought back the backpack,
Right?
that yeah,
Yes, they brought it back.
right. So it's like, oh my god, there it is. I'm right back in Empire Strikes Back, but now we're seeing kind of a, kind of a more advanced Luke Skywalker, right? This person who has now become the master now has a student instead of the other way around. And it was a really nice take. I keep telling people, man, I wish we would have gotten like a Luke Skywalker Grogu series, because I mean I could just watch this for hours. It was really, really great.
It was great storytelling. And here's the thing too. And to kind of give an idea on how much the technology has really progressed, even since season 2 of Mando, when I saw that finale with the Luke Skywalker cameo, I thought that was epic. I thought that was so badass. But I'm like, but I don't want them to go too far with it because the technology isn't quite there yet. Keep it like for the small kind of like just a few minute cameos, right?
Right.
Boy, my opinion on that has completely changed. Completely changed. I mean, after seeing what they can do with Luke Skywalker, the technology, the dynamic between him and Grogu, I agree with you. I would love to see like a 5 or 6 episode like mini series on him and Grogu, or him in like a teaching his Padawans, the Jedi Academy.
Yes.
I mean, I think the technology is there now where this he can carry a whole show. I mean, it looked real enough where they could do it.
I think they could. And some of the best stuff, like some of my favorite series of books from the EU was the Jedi Academy series, and how he was training his students at the Masasi temples on Yavin 4, back in the EU time period, right? And I had always dreamed about seeing a Master Luke Skywalker actually train his students and go through that process and actually see the master come out and kind of watch this maturation process even further than what we saw in the original trilogy. And to see it here, it's like, oh my god, like this is some great stuff. And yes, I was of the opinion that it's like, well, maybe you should kind of like pepper these kind of cameos in, right. But they did it. They absolutely it did way more than I was expecting, and pulled it off, I think, very, very successfully. Right? I mean, the writing was very strong. The acting was there. The effects, like we just had a whole segment about, were very, very strong. Really kind of carried this kind of whole thing, like you said, OG. And yeah, I mean, I would love to have seen like a I don't know, like a Jedi Academy series, right, of him training his students and what kind of shenanigans that his students get into, and he has to bail them out, and that kind of interplay. You saw Ahsoka there saying, sometimes a student teaches the master, right, and kind of see that over a series. Like, I think that would be phenomenal. I think that would be great, and give it up to Dave. He knocked it out of the park here.
No, Dave does. Dave hits home runs. He absolutely hits home runs. I really loved also how they kind of like, it gave a little connective tissue to the sequel trilogy a little bit with that Jedi temple. That's the same temple that gets destroyed in the sequel trilogy. I like how we're kind of seeing the building of that. And I think that actually, this is the one thing I love about these shows. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of like what George Lucas did with the prequels. When the prequels came out, they were not beloved at all. A lot of fans didn't like them. This doesn't feel like Star Wars, and it was very much it was very much criticized, right? Yeah. But then George came. He created the with Filoni the Clone Wars series, and the Clone Wars series sort of took like the bones of the prequel movies and sort of put meat on those bones. And it really was through that Clone Wars series that fans really started to fall in love with not just the prequel era, but like the character of Anakin Skywalker and things like that. And that's what I love when I see Filoni doing stuff like this with like the temple and connecting it to the sequel trilogy. I like that. He's putting meat on the bones. He's giving backstory. He's giving context to stuff that we saw. I think that's so important in Star Wars. I absolutely love it. I would love to see Filoni kind of tackle the sequel trilogy era, kind of fill in some of the missing parts, missing pieces. But that's the exciting thing about these shows, is that they really do flesh things out. And it's not just the D+ stuff. It was Clone Wars back in the day too, was doing the same thing, you know?
Yeah, Clone Wars transformed, I think, the prequels for a lot of fans, and made them into something more like properly brought George's kind of original vision to life, and kind of fleshed out not only the prequels themselves, but the Star Wars universe itself. Like you saw like the grand scale of what George was attempting to accomplish with the Star Wars series of films. And like you said, put the meat on the bones of the characters, right? Like, you know, some things just weren't fleshed out, but in the Clone Wars, you get to see Anakin as the Anakin that we kind of have envisioned from, you know, from those days of when Obi-Wan told us about him, right? The Clone Wars itself and all these kind of things. So when you bring it here, I think there is a potential for the sequel trilogy to be vastly improved with some of these series. And kind of flushed out and kind of having those things that maybe people had problems with or issues with, kind of explained in more detail, kind of, you know, restored, so to speak, you know. I mean, because people, I've heard criticisms of, well, we don't know the state of the galaxy, we don't know, you know, what's going on in this sector with these characters and stuff like that. This allows you to really kind of explore that. And to improve even upon the sequel trilogy. I mean, there is that potential. It's going to be interesting to see where Dave and John take this going forward.
Yeah, no, it absolutely will be. It absolutely will be. Now, this episode 6, really gave us a ton of fan service, but done the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it gave us a lot of cameos. We saw R2-D2, which I love R2-D2. I love him. He's one of my favorite Star Wars characters. One of the most badass Star Wars characters too. He literally saved everyone's ass in all the movies. I mean, come on.
Yes.
This little droid, man, you know?
Yeah, no, he absolutely does. It even does it more in the Clone Wars and assorted films and stuff like that. I mean, he's like the, you know, the universe saver, right? He's like the kind of this droid that passes through time and saves everybody all the time. It's hilarious how they've set them up. But yes, we saw R2-D2, we saw Ahsoka again, right? But one of the characters that was heavily rumored to be part of this Book of Boba Fett series, we finally saw that blue Duro, right? At the very end, Cad Bane, right?
Oh, and that scene, you want to talk about powerful scenes. Wow. This scene was so powerful. It was very much a John Wayne Western, right?
Oh, yeah.
Clint Eastwood Western, right?
Spaghetti Western, right? Just,
right?
Yep.
It was great. The way it was shot. There wasn't a lot of dialogue. It was two men kind of confronting each other. It was powerful. I couldn't take my eyes off that scene. I love that.
Man, you can kind of feel the tension, you know, when Mando leaves and you just see this figure out in the wilderness and he's coming into view. It's like, you know, who's this guy? Who's, you know, the Pikes are not going to be taken affronts to their spice lightly, right? Or at least we think Cad Bane is associated with the Pikes. We don't really know yet. We don't really know how this large interweaving web works at this very moment. But when you see Cad Bane come out and you see, I mean, and you hear that voice and you see just that mouth that is unbelievably intimidating. It's like, whoa, you know, things just got real. Things just got serious, right? And he definitely made a first impression for a lot of the fans watching here. I mean, it was up there with some of the great entrances that we've seen from characters in the history of Star Wars.
No, absolutely, and they did a great job translating him from animation, because this is the first time we've seen him in like live action form. They did a really great job in translating him into live action. It looked just like the animated character. He was extremely intimidating. I loved how menacing he felt. I love that tension. It was so good. It was so good. Now the bantha in the room. We can't ignore the big bantha in the room, which is a lot of people are concerned or criticizing the lack of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
In the Boba Fett show.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, Boba Fett did make a cameo in his own show.
Yeah, right at the very end there. Did he even have a speaking line? I think it was what is it? Fennec Shan talking the whole time. I don't even think Boba said anything.
He stood there. He stood there. But a lot of fans are and I get it. I understand that critique. That's a fair critique.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that, Dre? Like, do you think, like, because I think Filoni, and this is my thing, Filoni really does. He's a really great storyteller, and I think he's got something planned for the finale that will kind of make it all make sense. And maybe I have a little too much faith in him. I don't know, but that's just how I feel. I feel like he's setting up all these plot lines. He's setting everything up, and then at the end, it's all going to tie together and make sense in a nice little bow. What do you feel? Do you feel like that's going to be the case? Do you feel like this is just the end of the Boba Fett's arc? How are you feeling on that?
No, I think the apex of his arc is coming. Even still, right? It's all been kind of leading towards a bigger moment. It's all been leading towards a war, so to speak, with this Pike Syndicate, maybe even the Hutts themselves, right? But think about it. I mean, if you are to have a finale of the kind of, I believe it was you, OG, who said this kind of end game type finale, right? With this big old war, you kind of have to play some of these plot lines out, right? Because if, well, just think about it, right? If everybody's worn out on the dunes of Tatooine or Jabba's palace, right? And you see this Naboo starfighter come out and blow some guys away, and you see Mando come out, it's going to be like, wait a minute, hold up. I just missed a couple of things here. What happens? And then if you have, my theory is, I think Grogu is going to select the chainmail, right? And it's just, if he selects Yoda's lightsaber, what is the point of all this, right? I mean, I think he is going to select the chainmail.
Yeah.
But now he's got to be transported to where Mando is, right? Well, that's a perfect scenario where Luke could be the one to do that, right? And maybe clear up some shenanigans along the way in the process of doing that, right? But if you have a Naboo starfighter come out, blow some guys away, Mando get out, shoot some guys, and you have Luke landing and giving Grogu back to, like, it wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. You have to, kind of plant these seeds, so to speak. I will say, did they go pretty heavy in setting up these plot threads? Yeah, they went pretty heavy to a point where in Chapter 5, you never see Boba Fett even once. That is a decision. That's a choice. But I think of it like the old, do you remember the Netflix Marvel series, right? With Jessica Jones and Daredevil and Luke Cage and all that. There would be some episodes where you wouldn't see those main characters, even if it was their show. You would have to you would have to spend a whole episode on the Punisher, right? And tell his story and tell his backstory and all that. Or, what is the main villain in that? The big guy, Kingpin, right? Kingpin. Yeah, Kingpin. You would have to, take some time to develop his story and stuff, right?
Right.
Because all those shows interconnected, and it was important to kind of set those seeds throughout the series. I kind of see this here. I kind of see Boba Fett as maybe a Mando 2.5, where, yes, it is Boba Fett's series, but there is a larger story playing out, and the interconnecting parts of it are very important to kind of intertwined through these series as we go along.
Yeah, and it's kind of like obviously on a much smaller scale, but it's kind of like a little mini MCU, because like the MCU, part of the success I think for the MCU is that they each character got their own story. So we had a Captain America movie, we had a Thor movie, we had Iron Man movies. Like each character got their backstories, got their own movies, and then they all came together in those Avenger movies, right? And I think that's part of the magic of the MCU, is that it sets all these characters up, and then when you're in the theater watching the Avengers, these are all characters now that you know very, very well, right? And and Book of Boba is kind of doing that obviously on a much smaller scale, but they're sort of doing the same thing. They're sort of, okay, they're setting up Boba, they're fleshing out Mando, they're fleshing out Grogu, they're giving us Luke, they're kind of setting the table. So when we have this big finale, the end game or the Avengers movie, so to speak, it's that much more impactful, because now you've really fleshed out the characters, and now they're all coming together at the very end. It's very much an Avengers moment. So I think it all depends on the execution of the finale, but I think it potentially could be a brilliant move.
I think so. And I think, now that I'm thinking about it in my head, I mean, obviously you're exactly right, OG, but let's take this even one step further. If the series was called The Deserts of Tatooine,
right,
would it, would it make a difference? No. Obviously it is Book of Boba Fett, but you have Fennec Shand, you have all these kind of, characters, like you said, OJ, just all these kind of characters coming in and out. I think Boba Fett's story would be incomplete without these associated characters, fleshing these out along with them. So I'm okay. Look, we all want just great Star Wars content, right? I mean, I think a lot of this stuff is just nitpicks. Some of the last 2 episodes have been really, really amazing, like really incredible. And to kind of like poo-poo it just because, it didn't feature Boba Fett. Come on, man. I mean, let's get real here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I have confidence in the team doing these shows. I have total confidence in Favreau, in Filoni. I think that this finale, some of these episodes, man, like this last one we just saw, episode 6 and episode 5, those are finale level episodes. Those are mind-blowing kind of things. And those aren't even the finales technically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't even imagine what they're gonna do in episode 7.
I don't know.
Imagine it.
I have no idea. I mean, I didn't. Looking at the slate and everything, I was like, okay, let's get through 6 to get to 7, right? But even 6 was like, whoa, like, can I get 10 more minutes more of that, please? Kind of thing. Like that was really some strong stuff. I have no idea what they have planned for 7. Obviously, there are a lot of rumors about characters making appearances and maybe a certain swashbuckler smuggler making an appearance, right? It sounds absolutely insane. I am so on board. I can't even this series so far. I think we talked about it earlier. Episode 3 that was pretty weak. That's not the greatest showing, but even that episode was really pretty decent. Decent Star Wars content, I thought. Well executed. Well, I mean, maybe it could be better executed, but just it still throws you into that world and does it very successfully, even with that episode. But like episodes 2, episodes 5, episode 6, I mean, these have been heavy hitters. These have been really, really great. Among the best we've seen from Star Wars on this medium. So I'm all on board, man. I want to see this 7.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait. It's gonna be epic. Next week, finale, Book of Boba. I'm sure we'll do a show on that.
We got to do a show on it. We got to do a show.
We'll do a show. We'll bring George on. We'll bring Josh on.
Yeah. I want to hear what he has to say.
Absolutely. We'll talk Boba for sure. It's gonna be a good time. But Dre, as always, I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for having me. I know this was kind of a short notice thing, but this episode blew me away, so much. It was like, okay, let's move some stuff on the schedule. I gotta talk about this. So thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Yeah, no, it was just, I watched this episode and I'm like, I got to talk about it. I got to talk about it. I can't hold this in. There was just too much going on. But if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Well, best place to find me is at Vash Sky on Twitter. That's right down there, just like it's spelled. And to see me, it's going to be on your channel at Orange Go 55 at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for watching. The future is bright for Star Wars, I believe. I think Filoni and Favreau got this. Absolutely. Now, I will say real quick before we close it out, if Chapek is following the data like we think, I think we'll see a lot more of Filoni and Favreau going forward. So I'm
fairly confident that is going to be how it's going to be. Okay. I think the studio and the C-suite understands all too well who really is driving this show.
Exactly. So it's the Dave Filoni and Favreau show for sure right now. And I absolutely love it. I'm here for it.
Oh, I'm on for the ride, baby.
I'm here for it too, man. We'll hop in that Naboo Star Cruiser and we're in for the ride. But yeah, it was fantastic. But thank you all so much for watching this episode of Orange Nerd. We will talk about the finale next week. We'll dive into that. We'll talk some Star Wars. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as usual, have a wonderful, wonderful day.